Good day, collective. It's your girl, Saudi Rose, coming to you with the word for today. All praise to the Most High God. Love to the Mother. I bring you the word on the eve of a major storm that's apparently barreling toward the Midwest. Storms can be really, really chaotic and destructive, and could include loss of life. Storms can also be an opportunity to clear away the old and what's not working to create the new. In this case, the word of the day is no more suffering. We're sick of it, y'all. So many people are unhappy right now, whether it's deaths in the family, personal relationships at their jobs, not having the things that they want, not achieving their goals, not having enough food, struggling financially to pay the rent, always having to worry about how you're going to eat, always worrying about how you're going to tend to your kids, always worrying about how you're going to be able to go to work and have a babysitter when you don't have reliable, caring family. The struggle. Our struggle has become normalized. I remember the moment I realized that I was so accustomed to struggling that when things went right, I always did a countdown of when they would go wrong again, because I was so used to everything going wrong and always struggling. So when everything good came, it was like, do I deserve it? Because good things don't come to a person like me, raised the way, that I was. I always have to work harder to get anything good. That's before I realized that I deserve the best. And that my children deserve the best. And that it is the other way that's flipped, where the state of lack is not normal. The state of lack is dysfunction that has been normalized over time in humanity, based upon greed, based upon ego, based upon power, based upon deceit. That is a symptom of sickness. What health is, what abundance is, what alignment is the state of abundance, shared collectively for the greater good of all, so that the wheel of fortune and life keeps spinning. You can't always be on top. And when you are top, you're supposed to share in the abundance. But we truly are at a collective point where we should all be singing and saying in unison, no more suffering. Especially when it comes to the babies. Babies are getting hurt out here in so many ways, whether unalived or touched inappropriately, or being forced to work underneath certain conditions that are not okay. And it's happening under our noses. We're hearing about massive efforts that are legal against children because they might grow up to try to revenge their parents. And it gets even more deeper when we start talking about how suffering happens in the home with children. Suffering often starts in the living room, to be honest with you, where our children grow up on full display watching everything that we do, whether it's drinking alcohol, smoking, abusing each other, talking bad to each other, not being kind to each other, not really caring for each other, gossiping about each other, disregarding each other, not paying attention to each other. All of the above. And that will cause long-term suffering. not just for your kids in the moment. Because what will happen is, if they're exposed long enough to those conditions, it will cause trauma in their life. And what men often do, because men often in our societies are taught not to be emotional or even to have any kind of feminine aspects. Yeah, but young men, I hear men getting on men when they are more emotional and they are more kind and caring and have a softer approach. So when trauma is happening to young men, often they're taught, you got to be tough, you got to be macho, you got to be a man. And what do? They repress those feelings, they bury them deep, and then it usually shows up in dropping out of school because they can't help their feelings. They're never taught how to emotionally regulate. And so they start turning to other things like being with girls or over consuming on certain substances as their safe place, right? Their outlet for coping with their feelings, since they were never ever taught how to cope with them, because they were taught to just suck it up. Suffering is a part of this life, and so you got to be a man and you just got to take it in. And as a black man, suffering, I have two sons, and guess what? I'm gonna try my best to make sure that they ain't going through the suffering that our people have gone through. I proclaim it. They will be raised as kings, and they will suffer because that is the human experience. But I will make sure that I will not put in their mindset that they deserve it, that it's to be expected, that they have to take it and not have any help to help process that information and that trauma in their lives. Sorry, machinery. Same thing with young ladies. What happens to a young lady that gets raised in an environment, and this is like generational, y'all. This dysfunction, this generational dysfunction doesn't come out of nowhere. It's passed through the bloodlines, it's passed through the families, and it plagues families. There's the generational curse of, unaliving, or like, of course there's addiction, and then there's all these other things. But for like young ladies, if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel comforted, young ladies want to feel safe. They want to feel cared for. They want to feel the warmth from the mothers and the fathers. And when they don't feel safe, when they don't feel comforted, that divine masculine will come out, and women will have been proven. They will, they'll be off balance, but they'll make sure that things are taken care of. But it could also cause a trauma response where they have no boundaries, they have no accountability. They're drawn to anybody who will give them some kind of caring, some kind of love. And that was me, y'all. I sought any attention, for the good or the bad. And I think I heard a quote, and it really resonates with me, which is like, every child needs an adult who cares. So even if there's no dysfunction in the home, even if you're not drinking in front of your kids, or smoking in front of your kids, or being physically abusive in front of your kids, or being emotionally, psychologically abusive in front of your kids, if no one is present, if no one is engaged, if no one is showing care for that child, that is just as traumatic. That is suffering. Because if they are not getting the love that they need, or the attention that they need, or engagement that they need, it will ripple out. And guess what? It'll cause all kinds of problems in their life, in terms of how successful they'll be, but it will carry to their children. And most of the time, it will not be intentional. They will not even know that they're doing it. I know from firsthand knowledge. You can't see it until you see it. And then you can make a choice to stop it. But we've got to start now, deciding that we're not going to put our children, because they're in our households, through suffering just because we were put through it. We have to say enough is enough, and understand when they see their parents, when they see adults doing dysfunctional things, and they get raised in that environment, it becomes normalized and it becomes accepted.